Good afternoon, everyone. As you can see, I've come with props here. This is really a carryover from what Katie Blanche was talking about with the breathing exercises. This goes in nicely with my own prop that I'm wearing on the lapel pin here today, which is basically, I started out as a caregiver for my partner with kidney failure. So caregiving comes in different flavors and different colors, as we all know. And many of our loved ones have comorbidities. It's not just neurodegenerative diseases or dementia, but other diseases and issues associated with their medical health issues. So I'm wearing this basically lapel pin, which is a caregiver related, but organ donation related pinwheel with 8 organs. The idea being that one human person can donate 8 different kinds of organs. Having said that, thank you, Raven, first of all, and thank you, Mag, for organizing this conference and actually inviting me to be one of the speakers here. My research traverses, the areas of well, that wasn't built in there in my presentation, but I can dance. I mean, I could do a line dance, That's good. Oh, that's all good. I love a little music therapy. We did, breathing therapy, so why not? So today I want to focus, this is the plan at least. But as Dr. Manning was talking about, I also get into different areas where I realized, oh, what were they talking about? So this is the plan that I have for us today, but I really want to provide several resources that the Alzheimer's Association has all across the US and beyond, but certainly within the state of Utah. So many of us are caregivers for dementia patients. And like I mentioned, many of us, of our loved ones actually have more than one illnesses or diseases. So this is the plan for me, and a little bit about, a little bit about my background. Raven was very kind in providing a very generous introduction. I actually traverse both areas. I'm a very precision-oriented scientist because I used to work for the first 25 or some years of my life here in the US in the area of biomedical research and medicine. Some of my research actually parlays in the area of neurodegenerative diseases. This is one of the highly cited works of mine on neurodegenerative diseases, wherein I focused not only on just Alzheimer's, but other neurodegenerative diseases like Parkinson's, Huntington's, and also gliomas or brain tumors. So I come from that field, but this is also me. So I think earlier I think it was Dr. Manning who was talking about writing things down. When I was a full-time, the only or the primary caregiver for my partner who passed on 3.5 years ago, not with Alzheimer's, but towards the end, he was developing a memory loss. He did pass with COVID pneumonia, but he had about 10, 11 different kinds of, chronic illnesses. So I would write a journal. If you can read, this is something from one of my journaling entries. I do dabble a little bit in poetry as well. So whatever gets you going, whatever can help you in keeping your memory going, do that as caregivers. And I remember, I don't know who it was, but either Dr. Manning or Katie Blanche earlier mentioned that it resonated so much with me. Don't let society and our loved ones guilt you into feeling good about yourself as caregivers. I remember moments when my partner Dennis would be in the hospital, struggling between life and death at the Ohio State University. And I used to work in the College of Medicine, pulmonary medicine myself. So it would be so internally, because we've been brought up to feel guilty. Is the Catholic school system guilt, the nuns that have installed a deep guilt in me for doing something beyond the normal narrative? Point being that just having a cup of coffee or going to a movie, or being here when our loved ones need our help. We need to embrace that. So this is one of my ways of kind of dealing with what caregiving was for me. And my dad, who himself was a physician, had Alzheimer's toward the end of his life as well. So coming from that scientific, personal, hands-on caregiving, of the 21 years that I was blessed to have done this in my life, 15 of those were basically focused on direct caregiving, and the last 6 years were in a wheelchair. So I've gone through the whole gamut of the responsibilities that our caregivers experience. Talking a little bit about dementia is basically, it's like a loose term or an inclusive term for memory loss, and then what comes beyond that and after that. So basically, when you lose your abilities to do certain things that came so naturally to us, and each one of us, even beyond when we were still young, and some of us are very young, we still experience, certain things. So like, I forget my keys. I go to a room and I forget why I was going there to begin with. We all go through those experiences, but then these experiences become more pronounced and they become more common. We really need to be observant about them ourselves if we can, still cognitively, especially for caregivers, to keep an eye and to basically be able to tell as to, with these repeat patterns, as to what might be setting in or already be deep rooted in our loved ones. Dementia are classified into different categories. On the right-hand side, you will see, I don't have the percentages or the numbers, but by far, about 83 or some percent of dementia cases are related to Alzheimer's. And of course, you're going down from the dark to the lighter side. You are going with different percentages, followed by vascular dementia, Lewy body. I just met a gentleman. I usually joke with my students when I teach. So I focus on health communication and patient-provider communication. I usually tell my students, I'm an American now. They're like, oh my God, what is coming up now? What's he is coming up with? I said, well, I play pickleball. So that's like my Americana, After 35 years of living in this country, that I have now hit that Americana experience. But anyway, so I met this gentleman, Michael. He and a couple of other friends were traveling through St. George. That's where I live. So he mentioned to me that he was just diagnosed with a Lewy body, dementia. And that's the first person I've met. I've met several others, especially I've written and did some research on Huntington's as well. So no matter what the illness, diagnosed, early onset, full onset, further developed, dementia, no matter what, caregiving can be very overwhelming at times. I usually present, and in fact, in week 9, we are in week 12 now, when I go back on Monday. Week 9, in my classes, we focus on caregiving with my personal examples as well. So, no matter what kind of caregiving it is, there are 2 ways of looking at it. And this varies. Overall, it's an umbrella of caregiving, but it also varies across cultures. What I mean by that is caregiving can be very challenging. We all know, backbreaking, 24/7, even when we are not doing, when our loved one has been put in bed, we can breathe a sigh of relief, but mentally we think about it because we're looking forward to the morning, the 48 to 50 minutes. And I had this like a clockwork. I had the science down to getting Dennis ready within about 48 minutes. Could not bring it down to 45, but it used to be more than an hour. So of course, the needs of our loved ones vary. But caregiving can be challenging, backbreaking, financially draining, physically draining, emotionally draining, but also the other cultural aspect is it can be rewarding. Could you imagine the way, this is how I have looked at it, talking about positive thinking that Dr. Manning was talking about. This is how I looked at it. that how blessed are we to be put in this position to care for another human being. Let that resonate with you. Many of us are here are parents. We know raising a child, how challenging that is. Many of us here are uh, for people, I call them people parents, pet parents, how challenging that is. And then you put into the realm of things, situations where we are caring for a loved one with one of these dementias. So this is what kept me going for about 15 years, and certainly the last 6 years. And these are some of the ways in which I have kind of made sense of dementia as to why and how I have been chosen and been put in this place to care for a loved one with issues that they cannot care for themselves fully, completely. And, talking about, just a little insight into what Alzheimer's is, generally speaking, what dementia is, and specifically what Alzheimer's is like I mentioned, I was talking a little bit about memory and thinking, but specifically changes in the brain. If you get a chance to search my name, Shariq Sherwani, you'll be, and maybe neurodegenerative diseases, you will find that paper wherein I talk about how the changes, physiological changes are happening in brain chemistry, in brain function. And a little bit later, I'm going to talk a little bit about the first of its kind blood test that has just been approved as recently as May 16th by the US Food and Drug Administration, commonly known as FDA. So I'm going to talk about it in a moment. So these changes that are happening that kind of complicate the daily tasks that you and I take for granted and or our loved ones took for granted until their brains started physiological changes. Again, it's a progressive disease. As of today, there is no cure for it, but there are already measures in place to reduce the impact of symptoms and signs. So I would not call them treatments, but there are ways in place, and I'm going to talk, like I said, about the test in a few slides down, but there are ways in place wherein we can curtail or reduce, not completely, eliminate, but reduce these symptoms to make the quality of life better for a loved one. And oftentimes, as the disease progresses, one of my very dear friends, I had lunch with him last Sunday, his wife, who was a nurse, I guess still is a nurse, but I've seen her progression exactly to this point. She would come and participate. I mean, the kind of person, she would be here actually. She just had to go to a nursing home because they're an elderly couple and caring for his wife was becoming very difficult. And that's an issue, particularly in Western countries and many other countries too. The patient and the caregiver are almost always similarly aged, maybe 1 or 2 year difference. So not only are you dealing with the issues with your patient, you have your own issues, medications, doctor's appointment, transportation, writing checks. Some of us, yes, even I still write checks. Don't judge me. Many of you do electronic. I know, fancy you. Yeah, whoop-de-doo. I seriously, when my checkbook is about to be over, I'm like, which one is the cheaper option? I'm still ordering checks. So some of us still write checks. That's a chore. I mean, you have activities of daily living, especially personal hygiene and all that. Then you have instrumental activities of daily living in which the check writing and coordinating everything. I haven't even mentioned food. People who are the food preparers and feeders in the family, you know what I'm talking about. I was that. I wouldn't sometimes even eat 3 meals a day, but Dennis had to have all 3 meals. And then he had to have a snack, and a late night snack, and he has so many issues. So I had to make sure that everything had to be done. Many of us who have raised children, we know what I'm talking about. So all of these tasks They don't go away because you are by yourself, empty nesters. You don't feel like eating today. So your cereal and milk can be your dinner. I mean, I love breakfast for dinner. But the point is, your care, the person you're caregiving for, needs to have healthy, timely meals. So those are several issues wherein disease progression is very challenging. And briefly, this one focuses actually on the patients more than the caregiver, but just as a reminder, certain populations are more at risk than others, particularly Native American populations. We live in Utah, in the border areas. We have a sizable population. I was actually blessed, honored to be invited to speak. This is earlier this year, I think April or February, I forget, at Paiute Nation in Cedar City. The Native American populations have a 33% chance of, if they make it to 65, their longevity is 60 years. Of course, I met people, I sat with them, elders in their community. Actually, the woman who led that event with a prayer, it was beautiful. In my culture also, we lead major events with prayer. So for me, I didn't understand anything at all, of course, but it was beautiful. She was 83 years old, but the average age is 60. So 1/3, meaning 1 in every 3 or 33% but if they do reach the age of 65, are going to experience some aspects of Alzheimer's, of dementia. And similarly, the Black populations, that's the latest term that we use as African American in communication. That's what we do. The Black population, much higher incidence than the white population or the Caucasian population. So the resources in the communities have to be there in place so that we can cater to all the communities. Not leaving one patient, one caregiver left behind is one too many. I remember not even once in 15 years could I get respite care. Not even once. And Dennis and I were two professors. He was here to take early retirement as a professor. So we could, and we had the support system of family and all that. Could you imagine people who live away from their families and all that? Because we are such a mobile society now. So this is why last year I was invited to go and to speak briefly at the US Capitol in Washington, DC. My whole focus was not on research or medicine or biomedical research. It was on caregiving. I spoke as a caregiver. I spoke with my heart. So the folks that I met there, from including, top position holders, there were delegations from all the states, but we focus on Utah, to the page boys and the page girls who do the work in their offices. They all had a story. Very quickly, I was telling my story. Very quickly, they just took over. They were sharing their stories about their grandpa, grandma, or an aunt, or an uncle, how their mom is kind of like sandwiched between two generations, caring for them and also caring for their parents. That's the sandwich generation that's stuck in there. So this is a disease, like all diseases. Diseases don't discriminate on the basis of your race, ethnicity, any other demographic, college degree or not, religious, non-religious, money, non-money, and all that. They don't. Diseases don't. This is one of those where we have shared stories. Today, I'm honored to share some of my little bit of my research and also a caregiving experience, a hands-on caregiving experience. But my story is no different than every single person's story in this room and whomsoever is able to join remotely as well. These stories traverse, our human experience. And just like I shared at the beginning, on one hand, on the left-hand side of the slide, I had a little bit about my professional experience as a scientist. On the other side, on the right-hand side of the slide, I had a little quote from one of my journals, trying to humanize myself, basically. And through myself, humanizing each one of us here and every caregiver that exists in this world, not only in the US or Utah. And this is the story of Tina. You can read this. We have many Tinas right here. I am a Tina. I've been there, caring for my partner, and then, caring for others as well. There are stories consistently wherein you will hear people come and share their lived experiences wherein they're struggling between the two. And I'll tell you, I briefly mentioned I did not get any respite. Whatever respite I did get was personally afforded, and I didn't have a support system. Now there are organizations in Utah, and we can talk a little bit more, and Alzheimer's Association has a booth. Shout out to Holly and Daryl, and of course to Raven and other people from the Alzheimer's Association, where we can provide you information wherein you can get like a 4-hour respite, a 2-hour respite. Somebody will come and sit with your loved one. Not just sit, do a few things for your loved one, where you can take a little break. Go to the gym, meet your sister, go have lunch with your brother, go to a movie, guilt-free. So those resources are more and more becoming available in our communities. And, some of these stories have common connecting nuggets within these stories. These stories percolate into the initial emotional journey. And, I could share experiences when, Dennis was first diagnosed with kidney failure. Sitting in that doctor's office reminds me of Seinfeld. You go from one room to the next room, and then the magazine, and the next room. But having done that, we all know we've been there. I remember sitting in that room. I felt like the walls were closing in at the University of Cincinnati Medical Center. Walls were closing in. And then this the F word, not the F words that we all are thinking, but failure, kidney failure, that is. In his case, it was that journey that began my emotional journey. And I was just a caregiver. At that time, I was just a partner. But then the person who is experiencing that, especially when their cognitive capabilities are still intact, and you can imagine what happens when those capabilities start disappearing little by little. It's as if you're losing a loved one little by little. Some of us are already on that emotional journey. And sometimes, because our loved one, the patient, is not in control of their own cognition, they can become violent because they're afraid, because they're frustrated, they can't control the things that they used to control very commonly, very easily. It came naturally to them, and they can't. So in those moments, caregiving becomes very, very difficult. Maintaining personal hygiene. I remember I never raised children, so I didn't know what the personal hygiene and care that moms and dads do, or caregiving adults do with our children and adopted children. So for me, poop and pee and all these things are second nature. I'm extreme, because I come from science, doing research on human participants and mice and cell lines. It's a very natural transition for me. It didn't disgust me. It didn't throw me off. And Dennis was a big dude, 6'3", about approaching 300 pounds. And he got very upset one time. I called, we were in the doctor's office. This was at the Ohio State University Medical Center. I referred to his weight as 300 pounds. And he's like, Shariq, you've forgotten just 3 days ago, we were with his PCP. He's like, my weight was 297. So he was like, very upset. And I was just rounding off. I told him, he said, you could have rounded off to 295. I says, point well taken. So you go through these stories of joy and celebration, is despite the fact that you are you're seeing your loved one slip away, one day at a time, one less activity at a time. In his stories, I pay tribute to him. The World Series that's going on, which is tied 3-3 right now, this was his thing. His family is into baseball. So these are some of the stories that I carry with me in my heart, and I share as I speak on this topic, both scientifically and as a caregiver. And the moments of connection, and the roles, identities change of caregiving from partners and loved ones. Now suddenly you are taking care of your loved one. And also moments of connection, those moments of tenderness, hold on to those tightly for as long as you can. When you are in moments where you cannot care, when you're angry and upset, and your loved one, the patient, is upset and angry, take a breather, get some respite care if you can afford it. It's very easy for me to stand here and say, get some respite care, or bring in a home health aide. I know exactly how difficult that is. I've been there. So I'm not going to stand here and preach, because on many occasions, I'm the one sitting on that side and listening to the stories of caregiving. Early detection is very important. As I had mentioned earlier, just keeping, not to be panicky and creepy about it, just following your loved one, anything that they're doing, like, got you. You don't want to do that. Well, I know, like, this spooked them out. Talking about Halloween yesterday, you don't spook them out, but it's like kind of like keeping track, maybe even writing things down. And a lot of times when our patients undergo cognitive tests, you find out you're convinced that they have some form of dementia, then you find out they don't. There are many other issues going on with human bodies all the time. So not to freak them out and not to be like this constantly looking for an answer, because sometimes for humans, answers are not to be had, which is the frustrating part. But we just don't have answers to every issue that we can conceive of. If you see changes, take action. The first action I would recommend as a caregiver, of course, talking to them, but beyond that, talking to the providers. And I know several of us here, I know who you are, and you know who you are. We don't go to doctors. I come from a family talking about Dennis's brother. He was having a heart attack. He's like, that's just gas. I'm serious. This is exactly what it was. Then Doug was rushed, his two boys, like, no, Dad, you're gonna go to the hospital, University of Cincinnati. Seriously, he had a mild heart attack already, and then he had another one, basically, leading up to that drive to the hospital. I know. So many of us don't like going to doctors. Why would we? Who wants to go to lawyers and doctors? But there's a reason why doctors, nurses, and other providers and lawyers exist, because we need them. It's always a good idea to have an early detection, early diagnosis as early as possible, because we have many more options and opportunities, at least for providing more help to our loved ones, if not cure yet. We're getting in that direction, but we are not there yet. All kinds of medications are available, kinds of therapies are available, wherein we can curtail or reduce the symptoms, if not cure them. And this is one of the highlights for me for today, is because I do want to talk a little bit about this test that has just become available. When I shared my presentation with the MAG organizers here, I didn't have this slide. So this morning I requested them to update this. They're very kind to do that. And the reason is because on the 29th, I gave a talk at a family clinic in St. George, where I discussed it. But that talk was to healthcare providers, to doctors, nurses, physiotherapists, and the sort. So I wanted to talk about this as recently as May 16th. the US FDA approved this test. And the idea behind this is now we can take blood in the typical, we are all familiar with it, the purple top EDTA tubes. And from that, we can isolate plasma. And once we do that, then we can actually look at the, this is the machine on the top, Lumipulse G1200 system, manufactured by Fuji-Ribio. And Fuji-Ribio has a lot of instrumentation, but other companies are catching up to design the same instrument for reading this. So this is the p-tau 217 over, it's a ratio, so over beta amyloid 142 plasma. This is the ratio, like I said. If you review my paper, any other research on neurodegenerative diseases, specific Alzheimer's, you'll see that in human brains, the beta amyloid protein is concentration increases. Not 100% guarantee that a person with a higher accumulation or concentration of beta amyloid will have Alzheimer's, but a highly likely scenario. But with this test, definitely. In fact, in the interest of time, I'm not going to open this, but I did put together I'm going to talk about the numbers in a second, but I did put together, I'm not sure, I think we have LabCorp here in Salt Lake City and Provo also. I know we have it in Ohio, we have it in Nevada, and also even in St. George, actually. It's a lab that can do a lot of tests, basically, and many of us go there for routine blood work. So what a report looks like, you're welcome, just look it up. But just to talk briefly, if for a positive test result, if your ratio is equal to or more than 0.0073, so forget the 0.00, just think in terms of 73. If it is more than 73, very, not 100%, very highly likely that our loved one will be diagnosed, or this is like, instead of saying will be diagnosed, actually has Alzheimer's, established Alzheimer's diagnosis. If the result is less than or equal to 0.0037, think of it in terms, so the range is 37 to 273. In that range, you have, high likely possibility of having the disease, specifically if it is equal to or more than 0.0073. And if it is equal to or less than that, that's a negative test result. So now we have this test, more and more we can request of our providers to actually, and they're becoming more and more aware, becoming more knowledgeable and more educated in recommending this test for patients who have already shown positive results through cognitive behavioral tests. And like I said, the treatments are there to curtail. There's no treatment for curing Alzheimer's or any other neurodegenerative disease. However, there are treatment options available for not only Alzheimer's, but other different kinds of dementia as well, for lowering or reducing the symptoms. These treatments are, both, pharmacology-based, meaning medication-based, and also therapy-based as well. Again, I do have, and you can go to the Alzheimer's Association website, alz.org, and look at the treatment. It's a great resource to have, and you can actually pinpoint what kind of other resources exist in our own communities, in your own community. So, like I said, drug and non-drug options, which is pharmacology and psychosocial aspects associated with it, mostly therapies and all that exist. Everyone experiences Alzheimer's differently. Treatments work in some patients better than in others. We have to be conscious of that. We have to recognize that. And these are, if you go to the Alzheimer's booth in the vendor area, we do have some handouts there for you. These are 10 warning signs. I'm not going to go over these. You're welcome to take a picture. Just glance them through, or on the way out, grab a handout. So these are 10 warning signs sometimes it takes the other person to recognize what we might be going through. Some of us may be going through this. I know one of my family members, friend's older sister. She was only 39 when she had Parkinson's. 39, basically, so Parkinson's. So, so what we can do is basically taking charge of our own brain. Very quickly, I want to talk a little bit about this recent study. This came out. It's called the Pointer Study. If you type and do a little search, you'll find out. So there were two cohorts of patients who participated in this study. Both had the same 4 interventions that you can see here: physical exercise, health monitoring, nutrition, and regular cognitive exercise, meaning these brain games and all that. The only difference between these two cohorts was one was organized through a system, through a provider or an organization. The other one was basically on their own. So the participants who were in the set pattern and organized manner, they showed better response to these 4 interventions. There was better response in both of there was positive response in both the groups, but a better one was in the one that was more organized, more orchestrated, in the sense that you were absolutely on top of things, not the other group which just skipped here and there from time to time. So this is like one of the recent studies basically focusing on what interventions in those 4 areas can do for participants. These are 10 healthy habits. You all have heard, not that I'm promoting one kind of diet over the other. Mediterranean diet rich in grains and beans, so those kinds of things. And I'm not going to read all of these, but basically 10 healthy habits, and we have pamphlets available. And these are some of the resources that I was talking about earlier. There's like one resource per slide. So education, we provide that 24/7 to you all. And the parent website is alzheimers.org, alz.org, and then /education. You can have 24/7 helpline. Somebody is available 24/7, literally on the phone and also as a chat bot, but a live person is available on the phone to provide answers if you have any questions or you're dealing with some sort of an emotional situation. The support groups are available both in person in all communities. I know for sure in Salt Lake, in Provo, in St. George and all that, but also online support groups are available. And then this is one of the ways of staying connected, again, through sharing stories. I'm a big believer in storytelling. And through storytelling, we basically learn as to what the other person's experience. And then this is one of the tools that you can use if you go to this website, how to navigate your caregiver journey. And again, more community resources. We partner. Several of these folks are actually sponsoring this MAG conference. And the Alzheimer's Association, collaborates, partners with them. If you want to participate in research, we always encourage that. So we have this trial match through which, caregivers can basically participate in research. And actually, I have a small grant. Who knows? You'll be one of the participants in my own research on the quality of stressors, quality of life, psychosocial outcomes, and communication uncertainty that caregivers experience when caring for a loved one with dementia. That's the grant. But I'm getting there. It's not up and running yet. And then you can actually download ALZ Journey, this app, basically follow different aspects associated with Alzheimer's and dementia in general. These are some of the ways in which we stay engaged in the community. You all may have heard of Walk to End Alzheimer's or Do What You Like Best. Pickleball could be one of those, and whatever works for you. This is what I was talking about. Do what you love to end Alzheimer's. Play golf, pickleball, cook, throw a party, whatever that is. is staying connected and promoting this idea that we are not alone in this journey. And, you can join for one of these causes or one of these events that you need to. And honestly, the ultimate goal for the Alzheimer's Association is basically a world where without Alzheimer's and all other dementia that affect one of our loved ones or more, many more of our loved ones. And in the end, I would like to acknowledge again, first of all, Mountainland Association of Governments, or MAG, for organizing this conference, inviting me to be here. I do want to thank Brigham Young University. This is my first visit here. So it's a beautiful campus. Thank you for hosting this conference. And again, folks associated with Alzheimer's Association, specifically Raven Albertson, who introduced me, and Holly Jeffries, who put everything together, getting me started with this PowerPoint presentation, and my partner here, Edward Rossini. So thank you all for being here and allowing me the grace and honor of sharing some moments with you all from my scientific and my personal caregiver journey. Thank you.